Important as each food has different nutrients in them. And you would not want to eat green beans twice a day, every day, and consider, oh, I'm getting enough of my vegetables, because you'd be missing the nutrients that would be found in carrots or spinach or other foods. Variety is very important in what you eat. Number 5 is keep food safe to eat. This will also be an area of major concern for you, especially if you're working in home health. You need to make sure that perishable foods are kept in the refrigerator, that foods are heated thoroughly before eating, and are not kept out at room temperature for more than 2 hours. If you have a client that has a dinner, some meat and vegetables, and they're going to eat it over a 3 or 4 hour period, you need to suggest that when they're done eating, they put it in the refrigerator and then reheat it when they're ready to eat again, not just keep it out. Number 6, choose a diet that's low in saturated fat and cholesterol and moderate in total fat. This is generally important for everyone, especially as Americans tend to eat high-fat foods. But if we have a client that has no appetite or needs to gain weight, we may need to not consider the fats as much as we're considering just getting them to eat. Number 7, choose beverages and foods to limit your intake of sugars. Encourage water or 100% fruit juices instead of Kool-Aid or punches. Choosing sugar-free products such as diet soda or diet jellos may also be a good option. Choose foods and prepare foods with less salt. Encourage your clients not to salt their food before they taste it, or to even choose lower salt products. And lastly, if you drink alcohol, do so in moderation. If you're interested in more details of these guidelines, they can be found on the internet. Just look up Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and there'll be several different sites. As part of your job, you will also need to be assessing your clients visually to help determine if they're in good nutritional health. Signs to look for include shiny hair, clean, healthy-looking skin, a well-developed body, and by that we mean skin should not be hanging on someone and every rib should not be able to be seen. On the other hand, they should not be bloated or very heavy. If you notice that someone's hair is becoming dull or brittle, or if their skin is getting blotchy or has a funny color to it, these could be signs of poor nutrition and should be pointed out to your supervisor or nurse. Your clients should be alert and attentive and have a pleasant disposition. They should have healthy sleep patterns. An example of this would be that they should be able to sleep several hours at a time and also be able to be awake several hours at a time, not just be taking cat naps all day long. Regular bowel habits are also a good indicator of proper nutrition. You need to remember that every person's regular bowel habits are a little different, and you need to determine what is normal for that person before you're able to say that something is abnormal. And lastly, a client's body weight should be appropriate for their height. Changes in any of these areas can be indicators of a change in a person's nutritional status and need to be brought to the nurse's or doctor's attention. To understand nutrition and feeding people, it helps to have some idea of the digestive process. And we'll have a quick overview of this right now. The gastrointestinal or GI tract is a flexible muscular tube that's about 26 feet long from the mouth to the anus. The purpose of the GI tract and digestion is to ingest or consume food that we eat, to break it down into the components the bodies can use, which are the essential nutrients. Then the body absorbs these nutrients to build and repair, and it will excrete the unused products. Digestion starts in the mouth, where we ingest our food. We need our mouths, teeth, saliva, and tongues in order to chew and mash the food up and get it ready to move down the esophagus. If any areas, if your mouth's not working right, if your tongue is partially paralyzed, if you're not producing enough saliva, any of these can affect the digestion process and affect how one eats or whether they're able to eat. Digestion, which is breaking the food down, actually starts in the mouth with the saliva. The saliva starts breaking the food down into the chemical components. The esophagus carries the food to the stomach, where it is further broken down by acids, enzymes, and water. The gallbladder, liver, and pancreas all play a major role in this. Food products begin to be absorbed in the small intestine. Moves from the stomach down to the small intestine. Nutrients are then transported in the bloodstream, where they're carried to the parts of the body where they're needed. In the large intestine, a majority of the water is reabsorbed into the body, and the material that the body cannot digest is consolidated and turned into the waste product called feces. The feces then moves to the rectum, where it's held until a person chooses to have a bowel movement, where it is then excreted through the anus. Anywhere along the digestive tract and anywhere in the process, something can go wrong, and that can lead to diseases, swallowing, or digestive problems that will need to be treated. If you have a client that has any of these problems, you will be notified of that and told how specifically to deal with each of these things. Some of them will be discussed in further tapes. Some digestive problems or diseases can be corrected or helped with special diets. Special diets can be thought of in two categories. They can either have consistency changes, changing the texture of the food, or what we call therapeutic changes, which may be changing the amount of calories or the amount of specific nutrients in the diet. A diet where a client can have any food in any consistency they desire is called a general or a regular or sometimes a house diet. This diet should provide all the food a client needs in the amounts that are adequate to maintain an appropriate weight. There are special diets that are sometimes called therapeutic diets that may need to be followed. And these can be either consistency changes that might be used if there are swallowing or chewing problems, or if the esophagus is not working properly. Pureed consistency is where all the foods are like mashed potatoes or applesauce. And they need to be very smooth. Often people with swallowing problems have trouble if there's any little lumps or if they can feel the texture with their tongue. It might become difficult for them to swallow. And often this happens if a person has had a stroke, or if they have problems with their esophagus, or there may be some other chewing or swallowing problems that have caused this. Usually when a client is on a pureed diet, you need to be watching them carefully when they eat to ensure that they don't choke or aspirate the food. You would not want to set up their food tray and leave them in a room by themselves to eat. You need to stay with them. Sometimes when someone has trouble chewing, it might be that their dentures don't fit, or maybe they don't have all their teeth, or it could even be just that they're weak and don't have the energy to chew regular food, especially